You talking to me?
What the hell's going on out here? Holy cow.
We talking about practice.
You're a goalie. You're supposed to be like that.
You cannot be serious.
Hello and welcome back to Sports Talk with Dad. This is a show where we talk about sports based on our own generational perspectives. My name is Kyle, and as always, I cannot call this Sports Talk with Dad without the man sitting next to me, a man who is childhood friends with Aristotle, my dad, Tim.
Hello, everybody. I thought you were going to say a man who was young when the Olympics still mattered.
That'll work too. I felt very philosophical at that moment, so I went Aristotle.
I was watching, they actually had, which I didn't know was a thing, but they had two-person curling on last night or the night before, and I was watching it. It was enjoyable, but then I realized, oh, the Olympics must have started. People just, I saw a tweet from Chris Collinsworth saying the same thing. It was just like, that's right, the Olympics have started, and nobody's paying any attention.
No. And the Winter Olympics, I think, have been that way for a long time. I don't remember ever paying attention to it except when it was in Utah, and that's because they talked about it in school. And that was, 2004?
I used to like turning in for things like the luge and
The Jamaican bobsled team,
Jamaica bobsled
which is back now.
Yes, they're back, which will be fun to watch if I think of it. But honestly, the Olympics just don't carry the allure they used to. I don't even think the Summer Olympics do as much.
Probably not as much. I remember it being big when snowboarding first became a part of
Sure.
it. That was a huge story. I don't know. I don't know what it is. I love the new professionalism rules and how it's going to help out like swimmers in colleges. And I think it's going to help out skiers in the Winter Olympics too, because I always felt bad. I think back to Missy Franklin. Here's a girl who's 15 and she won 3 golds
She
at
got
the age
robbed.
of 15.
Yeah.
And then she has to make a decision. Do I cash in on this or do I go to Stanford? And it's just not fair for her to have to make that decision. She should be able to do both, because then she gets hurt and is never the same player again and doesn't cash in after that. So I like the rules from that point of view. I don't know. The luge is one of the scariest things I can ever imagine doing.
It looks like fun.
Or the skeleton. You're
It's
on a
not the
toboggan.
skeleton. It's the skeleton? Or
I don't care what it's
I don't-
called.
it's frightening.
All I'll be is a skeleton if
Yeah.
I mess up, and I would.
Well, we were talking about it. The only two teams people ever remember were the '80 Olympics team and the Dream Team. And honestly, nobody ever even thought about the Dream Team until after. That Olympics was about Eric Heiden and winning 5 or 6 gold medals. He
Yeah.
won every race in speed skating. And then it was taken over by the biggest upset in sports history, which was the 1980 Olympic team over Russia. And then they went on to win the gold by beating Switzerland, I believe, or Sweden.
Was
They
it
beat-
Sweden?
they
Nobody
beat Sweden.
remembers. Everybody
Yeah.
thinks that the
Yeah.
USSR match was the gold medal.
Well, the funny thing about that was that game was played on a Friday night. It wasn't on TV live. And so I was working at Mackey's Shoe Shop in Portage, Wisconsin, and it was Friday night. There wasn't a lot of business. So I'm downstairs listening to the little radio in the back room, kind of giving updates. And Larry was very forgiving that night. But
It's crazy to think that there was an Olympic game like that wasn't on television.
the NBA finals never used to be on TV live. It was always tape delay. It was very strange how
That
things
is
have
bizarre.
changed. I think a lot of that came after ESPN got involved, and it just became, sports has changed so drastically since I was a kid in the 70s. Baseball games, World Series were played in the afternoon. NFL games were on Sunday. College football was on Saturday. But the other sports, there was a lot of tape delay. I remember, watching WCT when tennis was huge in the 70s.
Yeah.
They used to run shows at 11 o'clock at night. And they'd be McEnroe versus Vijay Amritraj or Vitas Gerulaitis. But you tune into those tape delay type programs. now they'd all be live. Now you watch the Champions Tour with McEnroe. Well, I think he's finally retired from that as well. But the Champions Tour with McEnroe was on there.
Right.
That was all live.
They still do tape delay on the Olympics.
Sure.
They still want
Well,
that primetime slot, but at that point, everybody's already knows who won with the way
If-
media is nowadays.
if they want to, and the time difference is so great. But honestly, I never tune in. I just when I watch, and it's rare that I do watch, I'll tune into the package, or I'll go to the channel that's playing the replay
Right.
of whatever event I'm watching.
Yep.
So, but what's
It's
a big
interesting. It's. I wonder what it is. I don't think it's that people don't have pride in the USA winning. It's definitely not that. You mentioned professionalism with the Olympics. I don't think that's it either.
I don't know. I think that's part of it because there was such great pride in the fact that our amateur athletes were so great and they were going to the Olympics was about amateur athletics. It was the last great bastion of amateur athletics. And then when the Dream Team came along, and a lot of it was because the USA basketball team started to lose.
Right.
And it's like, we can't have this happen.
Yeah. Here's Jordan and Magic and Bird and Barkley, and you guys have fun.
Yeah, we're just going to prove to you who really owns basketball. But I think it started with the '72 Olympics when the USA was robbed of the gold medal
Right.
by the referees, and they beat essentially a Russian professional team, not once, not twice, but three. I think they lost on the third time. But that's when you started first hearing about it a little bit. And then they came back and won. And then they went into the early 80s, and then they lost.
Yeah.
I think they took a bronze. They may not have been medaled one year. But that's when they said, okay, we're going to prove who's number one.
Right. I think chasing for ratings, I think, has hurt it
Sure.
a little bit too. They took away wrestling from the Olympics for a year, which is the original Olympic sport.
Never should have happened.
Like, what
I
are you
actually loved
doing?
watching that.
Like, what Olympic committee is sitting here saying, yeah, let's get rid of wrestling? I know it was like the first sport, but nah, we don't need it. It's not drawing people. Like, that's not what it's about.
I knew people who said, you mean Hulk Hogan was going to be in the Olympics?
Right.
No, not wrestling. Wrestling. Regular wrestling.
I don't know. It's definitely. I mean, curling is. It was big in my hometown, and
Sure, we've had Olympians from our hometown.
yeah. I don't know. I don't know what to do to bring it back.
Curling's interesting because that's the one new sport they've added that has really caught on, and people really tune in to watch. It's interesting. It was a mixed double 2-man team, which I never knew was a thing in curling, as I said earlier.
I played it in high school. I mean, we had a curling rink.
Yeah, well, of course. I played it too. I mean, I did it, and it was fun to do.
Yeah.
And I did learn one thing. Never, ever, ever tell a curler that it's shuffleboard on ice.
I mean, it is.
Don't say it. Don't say it. You're going to hear about it.
I mean, you have to sweep, but other than that,
it's not shuffle. I mean, you've got to rotate the rock, and this, it's on the pebble.
It's definitely a different sport.
I'm fighting not to say it, but
I mean, at the end of the day, there is skill to it.
There's a ton of skill to it, and the people that can do it are great.
Unbelievable athletes.
Our vet in Portage, when we lived there.
I don't know if you need to necessarily be athletic, but I mean, they're.
No, but our vet in Portage, when we were there, he was really, really a good curler.
Yeah, there's a lot of good curlers in that area. I mean, it was we had a high school team.
Still do.
In curling. It's still there. They went on to win in some state championships, which
and like I
was
said,
great.
We've had, I think our gold medalist has come from the Portage area.
It's a great sport to play when you want to do something while drinking.
True.
I mean, I'd say it's right up there with bowling.
Softball back in the days of slow pitch when I used to play.
Yep.
We did not have designated hitters.
But I don't know what you have to do to draw people back to it. I mean, I don't know.
I honestly think that the Olympics were always an ABC sport. It was always on there. The iconic music that was on there.
Yeah. ABC or NBC?
ABC.
Really?
When I was a kid, it was ABC. That's where the 72 Munich Olympics, where the Israeli athletes were killed. Jim McKay had to step in, and he was the voice of the Olympics, but he was also then the voice of that incredible news story and so
Right.
sad news story. So that was always on ABC. Now it's on so many different channels, it kind of watered it down
NBC
for
really
me.
carries it. I know it as NBC only, and I think an issue is too is there's so much that's gone on in the world
Yeah.
since I mean we pushed back in Olympics and now we have another
Well,
Olympics. It's like, yeah, this is great, but
we skipped out on we canceled one or decided not to go to one, then Russia decided not to go to one, and it was so political this year, and we don't talk politics on this channel, so we're not even going to get into it, but that's played a part in the Olympics. Should we even be in
it
China right now?
has. And
And
it's too bad, I mean it should be the United States athletes going and just kicking butts and
celebrate,
taking names and celebrating our country. And
yeah.
but I mean it's just I mean there's so much going on in the world. It's hard to even stop and pay attention.
I still, and I'm not going to apologize for it, I still get goosebumps every time one of our athletes wins a gold medal
Yeah,
and our national anthem plays. And
amazing.
I am not apologizing for having American pride. I
Or
think
should
we're
you? I
blessed to
don't know
live in the,
anybody that would apologize for that.
well, with everything going on, I mean, we're blessed to live in the greatest country in the world, and I'm not going to apologize for saying that. But I think a lot of everything is politicized now. Everything. And I really am sad that that's in sports.
Yeah, it should just be about the sports. I mean, that's why you and I really started doing this channel specifically was, hey, we need to talk sports.
Yeah. We need we need to give
I'm
everybody a
tired of
break.
everything else going out in the world. We're gonna sit here and talk about sports and be the distraction that people need if they need it,
Well,
and give generational perspective on things. And I think that is one thing that's awesome about our different generational perspectives, right? Because we talk a lot about how different things have been, but one thing that hasn't changed in all that time is the Olympics and the United States going wherever they want to go and just having pride in that. And it's hopefully we get back into it. Hopefully we clear out of whatever's going on right now and we can come back. And there's nothing better than watching those athletes wear the red, white, and blue.
absolutely. And I used to love turning in just to see what kind of an outfit they were going to wear. And, it was always done by Hilfiger, which is a United States brand. But there was a lot of talk around that. Minor, yes, but still interesting to see those guys in what kind of a uniform they're going to be
Yeah,
wearing. But, and again, it's all about on this channel. It's about what's the one thing if and believe me, we've had our challenges as you've grown up and
sure.
as you become adult. Every family has challenges, but we
Yes.
were always able to talk about sports, and it always would bring it back around and made us realize, yeah, look, everything else we get through it, no matter what the issue is, and we start talking, and then
Right.
we bring it back and remember we love each other and move on with our days.
Right. And that's where sports, I mean, the first pitch after 9/11 is one of the most iconic moments. You look at who are the two athletes that raise their hands up
Oh,
for the
back in the
runners in the
'68,
Summer
the
Olympics. I mean,
'68
that's one of the greatest
Olympics.
moments in Olympic history. I mean, that's one I grew up watching.
No, you
Um,
weren't. That was '68.
I just mean that it was shown
Oh, it was shown. Yeah, and
because it was an outstanding
that
moment.
was so controversial at the time. I mean, I was 8 or 9 years old at that time.
That's crazy because you see, obviously at the time it was controversial. When I was growing up, it was shown as, hey, here's American pride.
Yeah,
And I love the fact that we've gotten to that point in society where it's like, yeah, that's people showing, hey, we're Americans and we won and we're here to show that off.
exactly. And look, when it comes down to it, I don't see color other than red, white, and blue when I'm watching the Olympics or when I'm watching any sport. I'm seeing my favorite athletes. I've told you hundreds of times, Hank Aaron's my hero growing up.
Right.
Sports did as much to bring the country together uh, than
Right.
anything I can think of.
And that's where it's back in the Olympics. those guys are wearing red, white, and blue. Hopefully, we get some interest in it because it is something where our country goes, and it's awesome. It doesn't matter the sport. It doesn't matter if you're a drunk out there curling, or
Go
if you're
American.
working on your core muscles to be able to slide down a slippery slope at 200 miles per hour.
Go American bobsled. I mean, we survived that scandal where the former bobsled coach, he had to go to Jamaica and coach the Jamaican bobsled team. We survived the scandal where he put the
John
weights.
Candy was a pretty good bobsledder back.
Well,
in
he
the
just
day.
played the guy in the movie. I mean,
Yeah.
let's face it,
Yeah,
that movie was
none of that was fictional at all.
not at
That
all.
was 100%
Not at all.
true story.
I was just so proud of the Americans for overcoming that. Time to move on to some other sports.
I think so. So, Winter Olympics, they're on right now.
They're on.
You didn't
Watch
know.
them.
They're there, but we do have stories that has hit home a little bit in Wisconsin here, which is Aaron Rodgers has bought a home in Nashville, Tennessee.
Whoop-de-doo. I just don't think this is a story. People have been talking about, Gutekunst is friends with the Tennessee GM, and that could be a reason. People forget Aaron Rodgers is also a music producer, and I think he has his own company, doesn't he?
He opened it when he first came to Green Bay. I know he signed his friends to some label with his first contract. I know he's a big music lover, though.
Sure, and if I'm going to be a music producer, everybody knows the taxes in California are very high. Nashville has become a true hub and has been for forever for country music.
Gorgeous. I remember my brother Ryan and I were driving down to.
I don't think I want to hear this story.
Florida. Nothing bad. It's just we got lost. I mean, when you're driving down, you can either stay right and go towards the stadium, or you can, go left towards Chattanooga. And I'm directionally challenged as it is, and I saw a big shiny NFL stadium. I'm like, oh, look at that! And then it was too late, and we're in downtown Nashville. And let me tell you, there are some eccentric people in Nashville, Tennessee. But it was some of the most fun time being lost in my entire life.
I was at a couple conventions there. It was a great place to party and some of the best food.
Their food in Tennessee in general is so good. And the people there are awesome too.
They are. And yeah, we all went. We lived in Florida, or I lived there for 13, 14 years, and you go right by Nashville as you're coming up and as you're heading back down. So it was a good place to stop off.
Yeah, Tennessee for Aaron Rodgers makes sense.
It does.
It does. I mean, he's an upgrade over Tannehill. That team's been so close for how long? They were just a number one seed as well. Aaron Rodgers, if he gets home field advantage, doesn't have to play in, the negative 10-degree weather we have here in Green Bay.
I still think it's Packers or not. They've got the best chance to win. I'm sorry, he's got unfinished business in Green Bay, and I think he looks at it that way. So I'd
love to keep him here. I still think you do the 3-team trade. I think it's the only way to make it work, and you get Russell Wilson into green and gold.
I'd love to see it.
I don't want to see Aaron Rodgers go. I said it before, but if he's going to go, let's at least get Russell Wilson to Green Bay.
I would love to see that as well, because I think it'd be coming home. Somebody commented after we put that post up that Wilson's wife wouldn't want to come to Green Bay.
Well, I don't care if Sierra wants to come to Green Bay or not.
I think she would love Green Bay.
Aaron Rodgers has had plenty of girlfriends that didn't want to come to Green Bay, and he was still here.
He's married to Sierra now. They've got like 3 kids.
Yeah, they've been married for a long time.
Yeah, and so I think Green Bay is a great place to raise a family.
Yeah.
So bring him on. But I don't see Rodgers.
I don't know until either. I think he's got unfinished business too. I'm right there with you.
The story has to flesh out a little bit before I'm going to get all worried about it.
But he did buy it in Nashville, though. It's going to be an interesting story until he makes a decision. The other big NFL news is Harbaugh decided I'm not going to the Vikings.
Doesn't surprise me. He was a good NFL coach, but I think he got burnt. I think it stung to lose in the NCAA champion playoffs.
Yeah.
He still wants to beat Ohio State again. He's a Michigan guy. He's got family there. So it's a different NCAA and college football in general is a different animal than the NFL.
It is.
You're coaching kids, you're getting them ready.
You are, and you have so much more control, right? And I think that's why you see a lot of college coaches not make it in the NFL because you're used. I mean, look what happened to Urban Meyer, right? You're
And Nick
used
Saban.
to and Saban. I think more so Meyer especially because what are kids gonna? They're not gonna turn on you, right?
Right.
Because they aren't starting if they do that.
Meyer's issues were Meyer-inflicted issues, though.
Well, yeah, I mean, he did that to himself, and I think Saban, it was hard as well, and I think that shows by the fact that he came to Alabama and just started where he left off,
And took it
and
to
just
a whole
brought in
new level.
recruits and took it to a whole new level. It's different when you're talking to guys that are making more money than you.
Right. And they just don't listen. I mean, that's why I admire guys like Matt LaFleur, who
Yeah,
is able to relate to the players.
you gotta set aside your pride a lot more.
You
You've
do.
said it before, the NFL is about the players, where college is very much about the coaches.
And I think that's the case in NCAA football, basketball, whatever. Um, it's a different animal.
It
But
is. It is. I think he comes back. I think a big thing is too is what he was walking into with the Vikings. I mean, Kirk Cousins on the last year of his contract. That defense isn't getting any younger, and
uh,
you really don't have a bench of guys there that are ready to step up.
and I
And in
don't
the
think
NFL, if you don't have a quarterback,
you're not going to win. And I don't think Kirk Cousins may not even be there next year.
let's say trade him. I think he'll hang out for one more year. He's got one more year left on his contract.
It's the Vikings. If you look at the NFC North, the whole division, with the exception of the Packers, if Rodgers stays,
It's a
and
bad division.
Detroit, the other two teams are really in a state of flux. The Bears are the Bears, and I don't agree with their hire. I think they went the wrong way. Harbaugh would have been a great hire in Minnesota had they been able to get him. I think he would have went in there with his attitude. He would have
Yep,
turned around. They would have been competitive, and they would have done a good job.
they would have been.
But now we'll see who they get for a coach.
I don't know. The carousels continue. Another question was brought up in the NFL since we're on the subject, which was tanking in the NFL, which I personally think is crazy.
How can you tank in the
I don't
NFL?
know. I don't know. Flores came out, and that's part of his thing is that he's saying that he was asked to tank, which maybe, I don't know. I'm not a part of those conversations, obviously, but it's so hard. I mean, basketball, one player
Right.
makes a big difference, right? And so it makes sense that you want to get that first pick because that can change your franchise forever. In football, that's not the case.
No, I mean you look at what Jimmy Johnson did in Dallas when he traded Herschel Walker. Did
That was for a
he?
lot of draft
It
picks.
was a lot of draft picks, and did they play well? No, they didn't play well at all, but I don't think they tanked any of those games. The thing that I think about the NFL, if you tank, you're going to get hurt. If you don't go at full speed,
Right.
that's
I mean,
when
you can
injuries
bring in
happen.
worse players, but at the end of the day, they're all NFL players. I
Right.
mean, and say you draft, Trevor Lawrence, for example. If you don't have anybody blocking for him or anybody out there that can catch the ball, that dude's not going to make a big difference for
No,
you.
he's not.
David Carr, I mean, starting from scratch, that guy got destroyed. He's a guy that I think could have been a lot better.
Oh, I think he would have been a really serviceable, good NFL quarterback, but my God, he was in a
70
war zone.
sacks in 2 years.
He took a beating.
He did.
It was like being in the ring with Ali.
He killed his confidence from the word go.
Yeah.
It's, they've been talking lottery with the NFL draft.
Don't try and fix it. You've got the best thing going. Just leave it alone.
Yeah, it takes a few years to build it back up. It just
Yeah.
does. You have to. I mean, the issue with the Jaguars isn't the fact that they're getting the number one pick. The fact with the Jaguars is twofold, where one, you're not spending money on free agents, and two, nobody wants to go and play in Jacksonville.
I think with the NFL, it's always about the ownership.
It is, and I think Khan's trying.
I think he is too, but you look at you look like at a team like Washington. If I can talk, I apologize.
The Commanders.
The Commodes.
Commodes.
What a goofy name. But again, he is one of the worst owners in
He is.
football.
Yeah, that's why they're losing. Look what Buffalo's done. They're a winning franchise now, but look how much they had to pay
Hmm.
to get some of those free agents to come to Buffalo.
But they had a good ownership group.
Right. They're like, that's fine. We're willing to pay you. Come to Buffalo.
You look at all the great franchises in football. Granted, the Packers don't have an owner outright, but we've got a good corporation that
Right.
runs the program very well. Jerry Jones, say what you want about him, it's a well-run
You're always talking about
organization.
the Cowboys.
Right. LA is well-run. The Chiefs are always well-run.
Yep.
The Giants have traditionally been well-run. I don't think the last few years have been a struggle, but New England certainly has been.
Yeah.
They're still winning.
They are.
So I think it's much more about owners, and I don't think any of those owners would
Right.
knowingly tank.
Well, and honestly, you look at it, how many of those top 10 draft picks are busts?
A
in
lot.
the NFL, a lot of them. So, I mean, what does getting the number one pick all the time really do for you? That's why I don't think tanking's anything. You can get as much talent that can make a difference on your team at pick 20 as you can at pick
Well, how many times have we
number
talked
1.
about that the most impactful players are typically lower in the draft?
Right. I mean, you're going to get some superstars.
Tom Brady,
I mean, Tom Brady was a fluke.
199.
But I mean, you look at some of the top. J.J. Watt was a top 10 pick.
Mhm.
You know, Cam Newton was number 1 overall. Matthew Stafford was number 1 overall pick. So I mean, you can hit on those picks.
Sure.
But look at Sam Bradford.
Look at Jamarcus Russell.
Yeah.
You know, it's always up in the air, and it always comes back to the organization. But
It does, but it's more about scouting. It's more about finding players that fit your coach's needs. I mean, in the NFL, you can sign free agents a lot easier. I just don't think tanking in the NFL truly exists. I don't think it's possible.
I don't think it's possible either, because those guys are playing for their lives every single year.
Right.
And they're not going to sit back and go, "Oh, that's all right. You'll take care of me if I tank."
Right.
No, that's never going to happen.
Well, in basketball, it's different. You know, one player does make a huge
Mhm.
difference, and you can set up some bad teams with it. But I mean, back to the conversation with David Carr. It brings up a question. This is something that somebody who watches the show asked me was players that should have been better but got hurt. You know, players that could have been Hall of Famers had they not got hurt.
That's a long list.
And I think David Carr is on that list. I think David Carr is better than Derek ever was.
I think you're right.
And I think if he goes to a different franchise or is allowed to sit behind a better offensive line, he doesn't get his confidence shaken. And I think he has a nice long career.
Well, what happens if Rodgers goes to San Francisco and Alex Smith comes to Green Bay?
It could be different. I mean, Alex Smith was never going to be the quarterback that
No.
Aaron Rodgers was. But if Aaron Rodgers doesn't sit, Aaron Rodgers had a very high throwing motion. So if he's put in to start right away, does his confidence get rocked versus sitting behind Favre and learning what he learned?
And listening to Bart Starr, which he did.
Right.
You can see so much of Favre in Rodgers, just the way he plays the game. But, you know, you look at guys that have gotten injured, like David Carr. And in football, this guy should have been a Hall of Famer in 2 sports, Bo Jackson.
Bo Jackson.
The single greatest athlete I've ever seen. And he was a dominant football player. He would have taken the Raiders, I think, to the playoffs and maybe the Super Bowl. You never know what happens when you get in there. But he could have been a Hall of Famer in 2 sports had it not been for that hip injury.
Right.
And he got hurt because he was so strong.
Yeah, and it was a fluke tackle.
It was.
You know, it just was. He got hit in the right spot at the right angle at the right time, and
Well, the guy held on, and he was so strong. He was just trying to pull it, and he ended up pulling his hip out.
Yep. At that time, the medical advancements weren't there to fix it. It was a career-ending injury.
Well,
He tried to make a comeback in baseball, but he was never the same player.
No, you're never going to be the same player. But you talk about that. I look at guys like Joe Namath, who
we talked about him.
The surgeons were butchers back then. No offense to any doctors that are out there, but I mean, back then, knee surgery, you got opened up from top to bottom, and you went in and fixed it. Now they do most things with a scope. Right. Namath would have been a different player had the technology been different.
Yeah, we talked about that. You know, Namath, you know, before Warner came into play, he was probably the least impressive quarterback in the Hall of Fame, to no fault of his own. He's definitely a Hall of Fame player.
Yeah.
But his knees got so bad in the end. I look at Sterling Sharp.
Yeah.
who should be in the Hall of Fame.
I think he should be in there now, regardless of what
I do
happened.
too. I mean, in the 9 years he played, he was the most dominant wide receiver in the league.
He was,
But he played in a small market on a bad team.
well, on a bad team at that time, but he was starting to come into his own. He would have been on that Packers Super Bowl team had he
Yep.
kept playing. People have always said, well, Favre got better after Sharp retired. No.
It's like saying Stafford got better after Sharp retired or after Calvin Johnson retired. Nobody gets better when the best receiver in the game leaves.
Right. And I always thought it was a goofy argument. And their argument was, well, he looked at other players. Well, he looked at Sharp because Sharp always got open.
Right.
I mean, it had nothing to do with who else.
Why do you throw it to anybody else when somebody's triple covered and still catches the ball?
Yes, and I think that did hurt Rodgers this year with Devontae Adams. But, there are other guys. Earl Campbell got hurt.
Yeah, he got hurt early in his career.
He was the single most dominant running back I've ever seen.
Still a Hall of Famer. There's a running back though who I think would have been a Hall of Famer, and he's a Detroit Lion.
Billy Sims.
I mean, a Heisman Trophy winner.
Right.
And put up 5,000 yards in his first 4 years in the NFL, and then got hurt.
It's interesting because the Lions could have went either back-to-back Hall of Famers with Billy Sims
They're
to
never
Barry
in a position
Sanders.
to draft Barry Sanders.
And that's just it. He may have went to another team.
I mean, Sims was carrying that team.
Billy Sims was an amazing running back.
Yeah.
He wasn't like Barry Sanders. He was more of a power runner.
Right.
But he was a force when he was on Detroit. Yeah.
He was heading towards Emmitt Smith-sized numbers.
I think you're right. I think he would have been a Hall of Famer. Sadly, he was still playing for Detroit, and Detroit was not going to be a playoff team even with him on the team.
No, they weren't, but I think he gets forgotten in history because of that, and it's too bad because Detroit fans remember him for what he was, and he was a really solid player.
Well, and he gets forgotten too because Barry Sanders wore the same number.
Yeah.
They're both number 20. And I think Detroit has retired the number for both players at this point. I could be wrong about that, but I think they did.
I don't know on that one.
I
You
don't
guys
know.
let us know in the comments below on that. There is 2 players and one that I'm still sour about because he should have been better. But Kerry Wood was definitely one of those guys.
He refused to change his motion.
It was his motion that got him hurt. I understand that. He was a dominant pitcher in his time, but if he stays healthy, I mean, nobody touched Kerry Wood.
No, he was every bit as dominant as Nolan Ryan and Roger Clemens was.
Yep.
I mean, he was another one of those Texas kids who just had a cannon for an arm, huge 12-6 breaking ball. I was
going to say, I mean, his curveball was impressive.
It was incredible, but he got hurt because of the way he threw.
He did, and he never came back. Went into a reliever
and had a nice career
later in his career. And yeah, he came back to the Cubs for a little bit. Was our closer for a little bit. But Mark Pryor.
Go on, Tucker. You mentioned this earlier. Go on, because I know where this is going to go.
Mark Pryor should have been a Hall of Famer. And
it could have been.
Dusty Baker ruined Mark Pryor. I can't stand Dusty Baker.
Dusty, if you're watching, and I hope you are.
You can come talk to me. I'm not your biggest fan.
Look, this all comes back to what's sadly known as the Bartman game.
It is, and that game was Dusty Baker's fault, and he broke Mark Pryor in the process.
He did.
Moises Alou overreacts to the Bartman situation.
Correct.
Would he have caught the ball? Yes. Should Bartman have reached out? No. Was it Bartman's fault? Not even close. Moises Alou overreacted. He acted like a 5-year-old and threw his glove on the ground. So now everybody's paying attention to it. And then Alex Gonzalez, who was one of the best shortstops in the game that year, makes an untimely error. And then you have a young pitcher in Mark Pryor who is visibly shaken.
Yes.
And Baker just leaves him in there to rot.
It was a young team that should have been good for a long time, but Dusty Baker at that point needed to go out there, walk right out to left field, and tell Alou to stop it, bring everybody together, probably pull Pryor out. But even if he doesn't, if he just comes in and goes, look, guys, we're still in great shape. Just relax.
You had Kerry Wood in the bullpen that night. You specifically pulled him earlier in the game down in Miami. So you had him in the bullpen ready for Game 6 to come home, and Mark Pryor's visibly shaken. He's a young player. You have Kerrywood in the pen, and you don't even come out and talk to him. He lets up 8 runs, comes back the next year, is clearly overthrowing the ball, and throws out his shoulder because of it halfway through the season. And unfortunately, he never comes back. But he's one guy I look at that he had everything.
Oh, he was a what should have been.
He had everything. Look at Brian Taylor, the old Yankees prospect, never made it to the majors, gets in a bar fight and decides to punch somebody with his left hand.
Well, I'll give you another one. And this guy goes back, but I remember him as a kid. Tony Colignero played for the Boston Red Sox, was on the improbable Red Sox team that went to the World Series, but in August, he took one right in the eye.
Yeah. Well, they have that Sports Illustrated cover of him.
Right. And, he was such a competitor. He wanted to come back and be a pitcher, but he was just never the same. He was never going to be a batter again because it was an ugly
Well, I think
shot.
Jason Hayward's a lot that way, too. If people forget, Jason Hayward took one right to the eye, which is why they have the why he wears.
He'll go down being remembered for the face guard that he invented.
Yeah, he and Javi Baez were the first ones to wear it. And people forget that. Like, how does that not shake you getting hit in the eye with a ball?
Oh, the fact that Colignero wanted to come back and be a pitcher is just mind-blowing to me. And he did fight back through it, but he was never going to be the same after that, which is sad. And there was another guy. This guy I remember because I was in high school when he played. There was a guy named Joe or Super Joe Charbonneau. This was a kid who was Rookie of the Year, had 40 home runs, I believe, hit about just under 300, and then got hurt and was never the same. He hurt his back sliding in head first into second base, and he was always a star. They did a song about him in Cleveland.
Really?
Yeah, I wish I could find. I should have given you the link so we could have played it. It was a great song. No, it wasn't. It was a novelty song about Super Joe Charbonneau.
Can't be as good as Brett Favre as an alien.
No. Well, yeah, no, it's not that good. Anyways, he was another guy that injury cut what should have been, everybody thought might have been another Hall of Fame career.
Yeah. One guy that is in the Hall of Fame that I still think got hurt by injuries, Grant Hill, on the basketball side. Because Grant Hill's a Hall of Famer, which he should be. But, he couldn't stay healthy.
No, he couldn't. And along those lines, Bill Walton's another one.
Yeah.
Walton was a dominant. He came in after Kareem at UCLA.
Yep.
He was dominant, but he had such a bad foot. He led Portland to the NBA championship.
Yeah. Speaking of Portland, Greg Oden.
Right. Oh, that guy I feel so bad for.
Oh, I do too. That guy was putting up 20 points a game, but just couldn't stay healthy. Yao Ming, another one of the big guys. Sam Bowie, another Portland Trailblazer. The poor Trailblazers and their big guys.
Well, didn't Oden and Sam Bowie both have the microfracture in the knee?
They did, and there's no fixing it.
No, there's still not a good fix for it.
With the size those guys are, Greg Oden had a smaller frame. He filled out, but what a nice guy too.
Yeah.
Such a nice guy for that to happen to. I loved watching Greg Oden at Ohio State, and it was.
Ralph Sampson was another one. He played at Virginia in college.
Yep.
Never won the NCAA tournament, but then he went to Houston, and they thought, okay, you're finally going to be over the top, but then. Again, his knees just couldn't hold up. And that happens to a lot of the bigger guys. That's why I was always amazed at Kareem and Wilt, how long they held up.
Paul George, the fact that he came back.
True.
After he had one of the most disgusting injuries anybody's ever seen.
Oh, well, Joe Theismann, he never did come back after that injury. Everybody remembers watching that. I remember some tennis players. Tracy Austin won the U.S. Open, but then hurt her back, and she was done. And then,
takes.
What's that?
All it takes.
Yeah, it is. It was all it takes. Tennis, you needed your back. I don't know that her game was very much based on Chris Everett's and a wood racket.
Yeah.
But then fast forwarding 10 years, the most.
Or tennis years.
Either one. The most egregious attack in almost any sports that I can remember is the guy jumping out of the stands and going and stabbing Monica Seles.
Yes.
You know, people said, well, she wasn't able to come back. Well, how could she ever step on a court again after that? I just can't
Well, the
imagine.
fact that Nancy Kerrigan came back onto
Right.
an ice rink after her knees were taken out and beat Tanya Harding, so go Nancy Kerrigan.
Absolutely. She was, in fact, and still remains, I think, America's sweetheart.
Yeah, I remember I hurt my knee playing tennis, and it was hard to come back onto a court and stop the way that I had before.
That hurt you for a long time. I mean,
It gets into your brain, and I think that's what happens with a lot of these injuries for some guys. But I think, I mean, you look at somebody like Greg Oden. I mean, I think he had the passion to come back. He just,
And
it was an injury you could do nothing about, and I think that's a lot of these guys on here. You know, they're just injuries that
that
they
brings
are
me
what they are.
to one who did come back, and that was Ben Hogan in a horrific car accident. Came back and won 3 in 1 year. Had to take ice baths after every round because they were walking just like they do now.
Right.
But I think they played 36 holes for the U.S. Open then.
Yep.
On the final day, and he came back and won 3 in 1 year. It's probably the greatest comeback of all time. And maybe Tiger will match that. We don't know if he'll be able to come back after his accident.
People forget with Tiger, like, you know, because all the personal stuff he went through and the addiction and all of that, and good for him for coming back out of that. But he destroyed his knee in 2008.
He won the U.S. Open on a broken leg.
Torn ACL.
Was that what it was?
And then he had all those back injuries. You know, he definitely bulked up, and he had all those back injuries. And again, people forget he was pretty hurt for all those years. The fact with his back injuries that he was out even swinging a golf club is amazing. And he came back and won a major, and now with the car accident he was just in now.
I hope he comes back. He came back for the father-son event and looked good, but still there were a couple moments
that
where
guy's lucky he still has a leg.
Yeah, he is. And there was talk about it. If it wouldn't have been Tiger, I think he would have lost his leg. But you look at, and just to close this off, you look at sports like tennis and golf. There's always been the conversation, you want to build long muscles. You don't want to put on a lot of weight and a lot of extra muscle. And I think Tiger's talked about that. He got too big for a while, especially around the chest. You need longer, lean muscles that can react. I know
he did.
When
science is getting better.
It's getting better, but still, when I played tennis, my muscles I worked on the long muscles, I didn't want to bulk up a lot.
No, and we've seen these happen before. We're going to see some more players, you know, where injury's just going to take them off the top of the mountain for sure.
We've touched on just a few of the athletes who have had their careers shortened. I want to hear in the comments if there's any who we've missed, and I'm sure we've missed a ton.
I'm sure we have. If you guys have any ideas on who we should talk or who is on your list of players that should have been great, definitely leave in the comments below. I think before we take off, we have to talk about one thing because I'm going to be out of town next weekend, so we have to talk Super Bowl right now.
We do.
And
your guy is still playing.
I'm excited. Joe Burrow is the Jesus of football.
Okay, that's not true. But I was
sitting. He could be. Look at Rodgers.
I ridiculed you for picking Cincinnati over Kansas City.
I didn't believe myself when I picked Cincinnati over Kansas City. I just know that Joe Burrow is one. Joe Burrow can walk on water.
Right now, I mean, he's amazing what he has done, and he's like the Packers in their 9-7 year, like the Giants shortly after that. He is on that magical run. Can it overcome a really, really good LA Rams team? I'm going to say no.
An LA Rams team that has two fan bases cheering for them. I mean, let's be honest. Right now, all Lions fans are vicariously living through the Rams right now with Matthew Stafford.
And Stafford has played great. They got OBJ. You've got Von Miller.
If that doesn't say anything about the Lions, like, there's your answer, Detroit fans. You had it.
Well, they also had Calvin Johnson. I mean,
right. Now, to be fair, that was a different time. They didn't have the rookie contract rules. So, you know, they had Calvin Johnson, who got a massive contract being a top pick. Matthew Stafford broke records. Ndamukong Suh broke records being a top pick. And so they got hampered by big
You
contracts.
mean more than the Cowboys did with Troy Aikman, Emmitt Smith, and Michael Irvin? It all comes down to
Well,
ownership.
I'm just saying. I mean, look at Sam Bradford got 70 million guaranteed without playing a snap in the league, and Matthew Stafford got the same thing. You know, you don't have now. You have the benefit of Patrick Mahomes on a
Sure.
rookie contract, right? And so you can spend money elsewhere. You didn't have that at that time.
And I give credit to the NFL for adjusting that because the veterans were looking at that going, wait a minute, these
Right.
guys have not even played it down and they're getting these contracts.
Well,
What about us?
It was killing teams
It
too,
was.
right? It just again, look at the Lions, right?
Yeah.
They had some great players, but had no money to build around them. But Matthew Stafford's there, which is awesome. You know, I've watched him play for a long time in the NFC North, and Rodgers is right. The things Stafford could do with the ball was always great to watch. But Joe Burrow walks on water, man.
Well, so
I'm not big against Joe Burrow. I'm getting a Bengals hat while I'm out of town. I am Bengals through and through. They're officially my second favorite team.
I'm still going with the Rams. I think they're another team that's just, it's their year. They've got OBJ, they've got Von Miller, they've got Matthew Stafford, who this is his shot.
It is.
He may not get another one.
He's proved all of his doubters wrong at this point. I mean, Matthew Stafford's an elite quarterback. He's proven that he's an elite quarterback.
But he reminds me in some ways of Peyton Manning because he is on the second half of his career.
He is.
He's not what he was 5 years ago.
He's not.
This is his shot.
It is. But
Yeah.
Joe Burrow walks on water. Joe Burrow goes to Lake Erie and just walks on it. And that's his warm up, is just to walk around on the water.
I have picked against him every game. I'm going to continue to pick against him because I don't think he's going to overcome it. Go LA Rams.
Joe Burrow, you are my football savior. I believe in the book of Joe Burrow.
Okay.
Joe Mixon's amazing. Jamar Chase is unbelievable.
And for the second time in a row, the team is playing in their home stadium.
Yeah, talk about that.
That's
having
weird.
happened before, and now you're having it happen twice in a row.
And that's another reason why. And the Rams have better uniforms.
I'm not going to be upset if LA wins. I like
The Rams will
Stafford.
win.
OBJ made his point of get me the ball, and I'll make some magic
How
happen.
stupid does Cleveland look right now?
Yeah, Detroit and Cleveland both look pretty dumb.
Whew.
But good for Detroit for finally letting somebody leave the organization and not forcing them to retire. Hopefully that breaks their curse a little bit. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be good. You have what we've been talking about all playoffs is this is your generation shift. Right. You have the old dogs in Rodgers and Brady and Stafford, and you have the new guys in Allen and Mahomes and Burrow.
Wily veteran versus pull a miracle out from behind his back.
Yeah.
Joe Burrow.
Right. He turns water into wine. He will provide the food for the entire stadium with just a loaf of bread and a fish.
Okay. I apologize for my son.
He walks on water, man. Joe Burrow is amazing, and I don't think that there is any way you can stop him. They're a team of destiny.
They're playing like it, but I think the Rams have that same kind of feel towards them. They've overcome so much this year, and I think they're going to find a way to win in their home stadium.
Super Bowl, man. I just hope that we see continued football like we've seen every playoff except for week 1.
Been the best. Even those were great games. I'm sorry. This has been the best playoffs of my lifetime.
To the wire. Every single game has been great. I've been glued to the TV. I'm just excited for the Super Bowl.
I will be making Mom Carney's Packer dip for the Super Bowl.
Yep.
My insides will burn after making it, but it's always good. I think it'll be a great game, and the Rams are going to win. What's the bet going to be?
To you, Joe Burrow, you are my football savior.
We'll find out. We will find out. And I know you'll be wearing your Bengals cap.
I will. What's the bet? We got to make something with the Super Bowl. We won't have time to talk about this next week because, like I said, I'll be out of town. So
you will.
We have to come up with a bet here. What do we do? What are we thinking?
Well, we haven't had any snow to really shovel, so that's out.
I got one.
Okay.
I got one.
All right.
If the LA Rams win,
Which they will.
I will make you my salmon on the grill that I haven't made in a long time.
Okay.
The lemon juice and a little bit of lime and a little bit of spice, but mostly sweet. I will make you my salmon.
All right. And if I win, I'll make something that I haven't made for all winter, I don't think. I will make you chili.
Deal.
Okay.
Jay got it.
All right. We're in.
It's in.
We're in.
It's in. Come on, Joe
My chili.
Burrow.
My chili is amazing, by the way. His
It is.
salmon is.
It is very good. I'm excited for the chili. I need to get the chili. The Packer dip is great. And by the way, I have perfected that. Okay.
Yeah,
I
your
have
grandma
taken
would
that
be
over.
proud.
And perfected it.
It burns every time I eat it, but I love it. I can't eat anything spicy anymore.
But we've had a lot of subjects here. As always, we want to know your opinion. We want to see the comments below. As you always hear me say, I want to hear your dad, mom, grandpa, grandma, whatever else you have in your family. You know how your family works. I want to hear about it. And don't forget to do this part right here, which is like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you can enjoy watching these videos as much as you see us enjoy making them. Before we head out, any last words?
Enjoy the weekend. Enjoy the Olympics. And we will talk to you when you get back from your holiday away.
Yes, sir. Hey, thank you so much for watching. We really appreciate it. This has been Sports Talk with Dad.
Bye, everybody.